This week I have uh I actually have to be in the car. I have a friend who just invited me to her birthday yesterday. So I didn't know that was gonna happen. So I'm sorry that I'm gonna have to not be on visual.
No worries. No worries. Let's check in. I heard a lovely phrase in somebody else's Zoom room. He said, "Let's not penalize the punctual." So let's jump in. So I'm going to check in, and then we're open space. So I can check in. I'm checking in from my library. Where are some lovely facilities, and it really reminds me of what the Commons is all about. There are books and there are videos and there are meeting rooms and there's a maker space. And I was able to ring ahead and book a room. I just thought it was lovely. So I'm checking in with a sense of what Commons is in my physical body. Looking forward to our continuing Tuesday dialogues. We seem to be coalescing around an action, and that action is the application for grant funding, where we might get to test something here in Ireland. So I'm checking in with excitement and with some grounding in reality. Who'd next like to check in?
Okay. Um, no. Gosh, I've had a sort of mixed day. Um, Having had two major hiccups in the last 2 weeks with what I've been writing, I sat under the tree at the field at the back, which is a channeling tree, one of those sort of great place for inspiration. And I do a lot of writing underneath it. But I just lay there in the sun yesterday. This morning, I got up and wrote the piece that I think covers everything I've been trying to do for 4 weeks. So success. And but one or two things have happened since, and I had that sort of kicked in the gut kind of feeling, which, funny enough, has just gone. Um, but I've been running up and down the garden, trying to keep the aerial pointing in the right direction. If I disappear altogether, then the wind has blown me off. Um, but it may simply be the distraction of having to do something practical that has got me back into my body. And, but might talk more about the kick in the stomach later. Okay, no, good for now. Thanks. Cheers.
Blessings. Open space. Anybody can jump in.
Oh, I didn't notice my mic is on, so maybe I'll go next. Um, yeah, I've been hmm, um I guess getting used to my new regimen of waking up every night at 3 a.m. Uh, as as you grow older, you have the compulsion to go to the bathroom more often. So it's my body's it makes me think of my grandmother when I was taking care of her when in her old age and how I slept in her room with her so when she went to the bathroom I could be there to accompany her so she didn't fall. And she would get up every 3 hours. So um I guess it's conditioned me for my own my own future. Um other than that, yes, working with Tuesday is when I work with Roberto in Italy and Liminal Village. And so we had a really nice meeting this morning, a long discussion of planning um, our next steps with our project. And glad to meet Rob and Helen and Grace and to have dialogued on the chat channel. So looking forward to dialoguing with you here. That's my check-in.
I can say a few words. As I said before, I'm not going to be able to be on video for most of the meeting, but yeah, I'm coming out of a long period of instability in my life, maybe more than a year of changing places and changing in life circumstances. And we'll see. I mean, I got very inspired this week working on some live action role playing games to help people imagine this future. I've just found that myself quite tired of explaining, and so trying to create some visceral experiences of like a game that would allow people to actually feel this rather than talk about it, but actually play some games and some actual imaginary spaces that we could do. And that's really been going well. I've been working with one of the chat algorithms to brainstorm and learning what it can and can't do, which is fun. Yeah, it's like working with a highly autistic but very smart friend on this stuff. And yeah, and so I'm looking forward to maybe being able to implement some of that stuff in the near future. Check.
I'm happy to check in. Yeah, I'm kind of coming in today, it's a fairly typical Tuesday morning for me here. I'm coming from, I live in Holyoke, Massachusetts in the States, and that is on the occupied land of the Nipmuc and Pocumtuck and Nonotuck peoples. So yeah, a little kind of chaotic, just lots of, different client work and project stuff that that's happening. Yeah, also delighted to be invited into this group and seeing yeah, the very insightful messages that are coming through the Telegram group, and having connected with some of the folks here before, and yeah, feeling like the thoughts and ideas that are coming through are really valuable. And I don't know that I'll be able to come to the meeting like every week, but I thought but who knows. And I also thought, since we've been talking about this demo app, that it might be, if it's generative for the group to come in and just mention a little bit about that. Yeah, and I've been working with Paul, and I've worked with Grace before. I'm a big fan of Grace, and yeah, she's helped me out a lot. A lot of times telling me, like the different ways my project won't work, and then I don't listen to her and try it anyways, and then it doesn't work in those same ways. So that's always kind of a fun thing. So yeah, that's how I'm checking in. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, I'm Helen. I guess I can check in next. So delighted to be here, and I'm in Manchester, New Hampshire, so not too far away from you, Rob, and have been working for a long time on trying to identify interventions that I can make that aren't actually harmful. And I think that almost all interactions that we have are, in fact, when we don't examine where we're coming from, end up perpetuating problems because we don't fully understand the problems that result from this compression that we're in. So I've been working very hard to begin to have a vocabulary sufficient that is intelligible in a two-dimensional flattened reality, but that expresses that which lies beyond that flattened reality and does not mistake that for, in fact, all that is. And so that is both invariably frustrating because I'm trying to translate something that's not translatable. And I run into people who ask me constantly how I'm going to monetize my ideas, which is exactly not the fucking point. But besides that, I'm making great progress on holding that space and being able to begin to, in partiality, point to our inability to actually close things, that in fact nature is in fact infinite. And when we insist on imposing our grid and saying that that grid is reality, natural, nature's law, the way it is, the way it has always been, the way we are entitled to be, and just refusing that and staying in this place of refusal. So glad to have people here who I can begin to explore some of those ideas with and not be chased immediately back into some fucking box in the master's house. So thank you very much. Check.
I can chime in. Good segue. Good to touch down with some people I've had opportunities to be with, explore with, continue to work with. In particular, I have been working closely with Alan, and that has been a breath of fresh air. It's been a lot of fun. Having arrived at a place that has a ton of resonance, even though our pathways to getting here and the way that we're understanding stuff have varied greatly, which I think is often what happens when we find each other. And we're in these places where we're exploring this stuff. So this has been a place where it's been a good place to be, and to be raw and real and to say it and not be dancing around and not being stuffed back into the boxes that in so many places continue to try to stuff us back in, wearing us down, as we keep the faith and stay strong. Thank you for your comment earlier, Paul. So I've, continued to be in a bunch of different places with people, speaking my truth, our truth. I relate, by the way, to what you shared, Gian. I have a new puppy, which is, and Michael, around being drawn back to very practical things. A puppy does, after losing my dog and went through a period of deep grief, but and she's now 5 months old, and she's either going to keep me youthful or completely wear me out. So this is Zara. You might end up meeting her on the call. She's roving around, chewing right now. I've counted 12 teeth that she's lost in the last week. 12, which is a record, a new record. Anyway, but I'm getting up regularly to get her out. not because of my biological clock, but because I'm paying attention to, the potty training at this stage, and she's being wonderful, but it's led to some broken sleep and being overtired and all of that, but mostly feeling the simple joy in the midst of what is still very messy, complex, emergent, ongoing, with that need to keep learning, unlearning, and there's so many layers to this stuff, and still writing a whole lot of stuff. So happy to be here, and happy to make space for this. I haven't been keeping up very much with Telegram. I mean, after a while, it starts to get overwhelming, just being drawn in so many places. And when I engage, I want to really engage and not just superficially kind of, there's a lot of links being shared, and so people are taking the time to share that stuff. And so again, it's why I really value us having the time here, because the Telegram is like a very temporary place where we can plop some things, but it's very fleeting. So, but I do appreciate what gets shared there and what's bringing us back to the well. This is a well. This is a well and a wellspring. So that's it for me. And so, Michael, I went ahead of you. I overcame that urge to wait for you first, because you always stimulate so much stuff. So over to you now, Michael.
Hello, Donna. Good to see you. Good to see all of us. I don't know. I know I've crossed paths with everybody here previously, and but richer or more or less frequent interactions. Something that's running through my mind, which is relevant to today, which I don't know, Ellen, if you remember, but it might have been about a year ago. We were involved in some conversations about conscious contracting. And I'm not a lawyer, but I had been, it might have even been more than a year ago, but I was working on this challenge with some folks about there is the writing up the terms and conditions of a contract, which is often when things are tactical and practical, defined and sharp and clear, and versus creating the relational container that that one would hopefully step into, and I think is part of what today's conversation may or may not be about, and how to attend to that more skillfully, both in this context and in 20 other contexts in which one is entering into self-organizing groups, and the question of what are the shared vows or the commitments, as Will Riddick, commitment pooling, describes, and the conscious contracting vocabulary was helpful at the time because there was prior to the contract 2 stages, if you will, what I would call vow development. That was, what are the vows that we will declare to each other, not as contractual gotchas, but as a declaration of the commitment to the larger space, and then secondly, what were the mechanisms for calling each other back to vows when we lost our way, which as someone who is used to kind of, you're wrong, or however I tend to phrase things, that it can be triggering for others, that there was this like how to hold this co-inquiry around the uncertainty that that we may co-discern forward together to a place that otherwise I might have my lens, but if it's to be something greater than, needs to be held in tenderness and symbiosis going forward, and discipline. So again, vow development, and what I call the fussing forward, how do we are calling each other back in, the fruitful frictioning that then is sharpened into what is the more traditional form of a contract with terms and conditions and a specification. So I believe that what we're attempting to do here today is something that, again, I've been practicing and failing and succeeding to varying degrees for a long time, and all of us have, and really yumming this up well and getting it beautiful is something that, if we are successful, I hope we can sing it louder over and over and over in the world. So I hope that all was a helpful way. The lawyer's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hi, Kim.
Hello.
You're the last to check in, I believe.
Thank you. Just landing here from work, also at the same spot. So just kind of clearing and just here to be here. So thank you. Good to see everyone.
Welcome everybody. I'd like to just put in maybe one or two pieces. One is we're getting close to making an application for funding, 12th of August. And I'm meeting tomorrow a group in Northern Ireland who can help us with a second application into the same fund on a different track. So the first track is to work with people in the south of Ireland along the border counties. And the second one is to work with people north and south of the border in about 12 counties. And one of the things we're putting in an application for is a debt-free mutual credit system to test that. We're putting in to test ancient wisdom. We're putting in to test generative AI. We're putting in to test dialogue, like this is. We're putting in a cohesion process for all the members, and we're putting in some kind of a healing process. And it's always been my hope that once we get something funded, that we can create some templates, create some play forms, as we're now calling them. And we now have people on board who are actually doing things towards this common thread. So Rob has offered some space on his existing platform where we can play and practice. Grace has proposed her large action role playing game, which she calls a LARP. We're going to bring that to the community space tomorrow, and we're hopeful of getting something grounded so that we can then feed back into the rest of this group on a regular basis, how dialogue works, how cohesion works, how vouchering works, and all open. So as I may have said, although as you see in the Telegram, it moves quickly. If you miss a piece, it's gone. I said I feel as if this group here who have convened on a Tuesday is like a global wisdom keepers group who turn up with um no agenda other than to share. So I just wanted to check in with blessings and gratitude that we are here. We may do some things which we can then offer into a commons and which we can all test together or not. So that's why I think Rob popped in today. If anybody wants to know about the HSC, the Holistic Systems Cooperative technology that he's built that we're using as a demo. And I just want to say why we're using Rob's technology as a demo. We can't use Will Ruddick's technology as a demo. I don't trust it. It doesn't do what it says. It breaks down in front of me. So I cannot present that to a charity organization that has 2,500 members. We just won't have any credibility. And, you know, that's not a bad thing. That's just where it is. But Rob's platform, I'm able to create a voucher. I'm able to create a need. I'm able to create an offer. It's beautiful. It's easy. Rob, I can see 4 years of work gone into it, thousands of hours. But it's a blessing to use and to be able to show. And I have it on my mobile. I say, here it is. And I can click it. I can make a voucher. I can show who the people are. So it just feels very exciting. And that's all I have for now. Thank you all for being the Global Wisdom Council for whatever has emerged.
Paul, you've brought us all together, and so I would ask that you maybe give a little bit more facilitation for this group, so we understand what you'd like to get out of this hour, and yeah, and so that we can, yeah, orientate ourselves towards this.
Okay, thank you, Grace. In the work that I've been doing over these last number of years, we call facilitation an F word. Because the dialogue is so open, and that's what we've been practicing for, well, since COVID. So we come together and we open space. So to the degree that any facilitation is going to happen, here was the piece that I just did. So I won't be calling on anybody open. I won't be asking for anybody to do anything. I will bring in a little Quaker piece though. I'm a Quaker. Don't know if everybody knows that, but there's a story about somebody who comes into silence and they're sitting in silence and nothing's happening. And nothing's happening, and they get frustrated and they lean over to the Quaker and they say, "When does the service start?" And the Quaker leans over and says, "The service starts when the meeting is over." So whatever we're going to do, we do it when this is over. So now we're just here, hear what everybody has to say, what everybody has to feel. I'm making a commitment to record this and put it into the Telegram channel for anybody who wants to see it. I'm making a commitment to write an annal. And for anybody who doesn't know what an annal is, I'm taking notes here on a page, and I will write a lyrical reflection on my perspective on this dialogue, this 90-minute dialogue, and that's what I'll commit to. So that's as much facilitation as I think is going to happen in this space.
I'll jump in here. I think some of what this is touching on is the ongoing tension that we all feel in various places, around being uncomfortable, around the balancing of what is needed for each of us by way of context that helps ground us in why we're here. But this has been very much an open-ended dialogue and a place to just allow some things to emerge, and then to carry those forward and wherever we're choosing to carry them forward. And I do appreciate what you've raised around the F word. And I speak to that from us, having been in a lot of spaces where things are facilitated, where I've been a facilitator. And there's definitely times where there's a need for that, but I also think we've got to step back at times and ask ourselves, what do we mean by facilitating? What are we facilitating? And how does facilitation also so often slide back into recursive cycles of control? And so it's the dance, right? It's how do we dance with these patterns, hi Sana, of control and the need for some structure, and when and how to bring that in. And we're in a very uncomfortable time. And so I just keep coming back to places where we can learn to be more uncomfortable, get more comfortable being uncomfortable together. Because I sort of feel that's the juncture, that's the place where we're at. So I'll stop there, but that's what kind of rose up for me from this last little bit of conversation. Check. Sana, yeah, you might want to check in whenever you're ready.
Everybody's checked in already? Did you all start earlier or just go really fast?
We started in half an hour earlier to better accommodate schedules, and in particular Grace, who's joined us from Slovenia. So that seemed to work okay. So yeah, that's kind of what happened, and that information was shared on Telegram.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm not good at staying up to date on Telegram. Well, it's nice to see such a robust group today. And hello, Grace. Nice to meet you. And I guess there's some other folks I don't know. Hello, Helen and Rob. It's wonderful to be in this circle, and thanks, Donna, for just mentioning the difficult conversations and energies, and I'm feeling it myself. I've been going back and forth between feeling excited and elated and downright discouraged and grumpy. So, and I did find in my prior meeting that talking it through, like I just came in going, I'm grumpy, I'm discouraged. And then when I talk through it, I'm like, oh, well, actually, I guess I'm not so bad because there's all these great things potentially. So for me, it's always like the balance, because I always feel like I have wonderful things coming in and then they don't really materialize. They fizzle out. And so I've just gotten used to that rhythm of hopeful little sparks popping up and then dissipating, but not all of them. So, and lately I've been feeling more and more the energy of where we're heading, or where I'm heading. Like it's feeling distinctly different from where it was 6 months ago. And not all bad. Yeah, when you rise above the noise and the confusion, like what I'm just feeling is really quite lovely. And when I can get out of my head, I can just really enjoy it. And to really sense into what's possible. So I'll stop there. So glad to be here, and I have to log off at the top of the hour.
Guess what I would like to say is just I feel a little uncomfortable that this meeting was moved for me, because I don't feel that I'm even in the right place. This does not seem like a circle that really is relevant to what I'm working on these days. And I do like facilitation, and I don't like this level of looseness in meetings. And I think it's delusional. I mean, the meeting was called. My time was requested on this meeting. I wasn't even told it was 90 minutes. I was just told a time of start. And, you know, and then it was moved for me because I joined. And now I feel really coerced, to be honest, to be in a meeting that really has no purpose as it relates to my work. And so I'm sorry, but I don't think of facilitation as the F word. I think we're all here to, you know, facilitate one another in humanity or in whatever we're doing in one way or another. And yeah, I think I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah, Grace, I hope you're still there. Are you still with us?
Yeah, I mean, you know, fortunately I'm stuck in traffic, so this isn't any
Oh.
worse than what I'd be doing otherwise, right?
I'm so glad that you're still here to listen to it. I felt exactly the same the first meeting I came to, because I thought Paul and I had just had a meeting about, you know, the development of, I can't even remember what he calls it, Dagna. And I was excited about the sort of economics of this. And the first meeting I came to, I thought, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. And having sat through almost every meeting from then to now, which is probably 4 months, I'm absolutely thrilled by the process, because it takes me outside that sort of commitment that I have elsewhere and so forth. And when I started today, I said, oh my God, I'm not feeling the kick in the stomach that I felt before the meeting started. I'm actually thrilled to be here. But I also have the sort of problems of the specificity of some of the like the terminology and so forth. I've already forgotten what word it was that you used. Facilitate. There are all sorts of words that we use in different ways. but this is a group of not like-minded people, but equally pioneering and equally dynamic. And I was absolutely thrilled when I read what you'd written yesterday about economics and a reflection of the sacred and so forth. It's exactly the track that I'm on, and it sounds as though Helen might be on that track. So there are questions about, perhaps we have subgroups that look at, the different qualities, because there are about 4 threads going on our Telegram page. One of them I can't understand at all. One is, linguistically beyond me, but the others I'm absolutely thrilled about. And as soon as I heard this morning that the village in Italy is a real thing, not just a digital concept, I flipped off to the web page and started following it up. So there's just an immense number of cross currencies going on in this group that are tremendously inspiring and creative. And it's a wonder just to listen. And that, to me, it's in essence a dialogue group. It's a listening group. It's a group that's looking for coherence. And what little I've seen of your responses on Telegram page suggests that we are actually all heading in the same direction. And how do we help each other? I'd very much like to follow up and hear more about your work and so forth. But enough of me for now.
I was going to offer something technical, but I would like to first reiterate why I was excited, Grace, that you were here today. You may or may not a conversation where we were both present, where you contrasted Christianity to Judaism in a way that the self-organizing versus hierarchy, in a way that made sense of a whole lot of things for me that I have both reiterated that meme in other places, and have found it a different way to hold social situations. And I tend to be also that kind of a person who brings a reframe in ways that opens up for others. And one of the things that I struggled with that gift of revelation, let's call it, that sacred experience, is it disorienting? I don't know. Is that earlier when I was talking about contracting, there's these kind of terms and conditions, and there's this whole process of defussifying. What did I just hear, and what does it mean? That I don't know if that was traffic and a dropped call, or if that was stepping on something inadvertently, but fingers crossed. But there was
traffic.
Okay. I'm not sure when we lost you. I was like, oops,
Sorry, no, you lost me about 20 seconds ago. Sorry, there's something with my connection.
I have this talent for poking bears sometimes inadvertently. I was like, did I just do it again? So, but the thing that I was, and I'll pick up the thread again about, there was something you said that was a revelation to me, and in my heart, I've been holding you in a very special way. And I feel that way about several people in this room, that there's a whole, meta level, if you will. And there's this question of, well, what does it mean to be in a dialogue? And is that something to simply be honored as it flows in life? Or is there a way to structure it, facilitate it, nail the jello to the wall? How to attend to this skillfully? And so it's one of the reasons I'm grateful to you, Paul, for holding a space for mystery to emerge. But as you described in the thread yesterday, a sense of frustration of talk translating into action, you know, where and how to do that. And yeah, what does that, what do we do with and for each other? You know, do we just run off to our own lives and do it in our own world? How do we come to an understanding, or do we just leave it alone, of how we can mutualize dialogue and amplify the songs coming through us and across us? And I've struggled with this over and over and over, and I don't have an answer, but I want to be in a conversation of people where we can try and crystallize this further, and so I hope that we'll find a way to sit with the messiness of it all. But also what I loved that just happened, Grace, is when you said, I don't think I'm getting this. I'm like, thank goodness, you know, because it's some of that frictioning forward that turns the fuzziness into the diamond that it needs to become. So enough out of me.
And I guess what I would say is that for all of us, I'm sure there's moments where dialogue is really important and where it's really important to bounce our ideas off of other people or just be in communion with people who have, you know, who are like-minded. And I'm not in that space right now in my career or in my space. And in fact, how I feel is that a lot of these online convenings are taking people away from their neighbors. Now, I understand that different people are in different places in terms of like, oh, I can't even talk to these people. They're so not my people. But that's the problem that we're all pointing at. You know, and if we all go online and we escape from having having a block party with the people that we actually live with, and if we all escape from our families by finding these like-minded people, I think we're doing more harm than good. And I'm really quite frustrated in general, just with like one more online convening group. I'm not in that space, and I do understand the need for it. And I'm totally perfectly fine with people who do have the need for it, but I don't. Like, I'm really not at that point. I'm at the point where I want to be doing things on the ground with people. And I don't want to be in more online convenings with people who are too far away from me to ever see. I don't think I've met one of you in person, and I've known many of you for years. And like, I'm just not in that space anymore. So like, you know, like I understand that this is an important group for many people and that this has its purpose and that you've gotten tremendous benefit from it. It's just not where I am.
Yeah, I'll chime in. Yeah, I think that's well said, Grace. I think as I've gone along, really I have been working, you know, and starting in these online spaces, and working in projects and trying to create projects, you know, in virtual groups, which you know, I still do and think has its place. And in my personal journey, as I've gone along more and more, I've been having more of an impulse as I go along that I really need to be like on the ground, you know, and that's where, you know, where the rubber meets the road as far as like really implementing, you know, systems change. And so I don't think it's an either or, but I do feel like that's what I'm working towards. And, you know, that's some of what I want to share maybe about this, you know, this app, you know, is that it was designed you know, kind of specifically this particular one was meant specifically for a virtual group, like of professionals and entrepreneurs, and and as of now, right, that hasn't really, the group hasn't really been able to come together in this kind of creating this like robust pool of value. And so I do think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's a virtual group. So yeah, I mean, I'm here or wherever I am, really I want to, for me, it's about trying things out and taking action. And one of the other things, kind of lessons learned, was that it's interesting that there is this kind of core group of people that kept coming together, that stayed for these long periods of time, right, over the years. And we had this like big giant launch, and all these people came, and they're very interested, and still in contact with them. And then after things settled from the launch, like the people who came back were the same people who were there, initially. And so it was really fascinating to see that, and to see how, one of the main conclusions from that is really that, like, what I'm hearing a lot of people echoing, in the Telegram group here, which is that, like systems are fine and apps are fine, and methods and mechanisms for economic exchange and pooling are good and valuable. And we do need to coordinate, I think, on large scale, but that without trusted groups of kind of trusted pods or groups of people, that it doesn't really fly. Yeah, so I'm not sure, where the group is going. I'm at this point, I'm just happy to be here with the folks here. And I do want to say, logistically, just because Paul is talking about the app, and yeah, a lot of work has gone into it, and I think it's I think it's good. I think that if you do go into it right now, it kind of got stopped. It was at a little bit of a pause, right? So kind of building it out and trying things, and kind of a bit of a hybrid kind of bastardization between like mutual credit and commitment pooling. And that's fine, because I've kind of figured out where the issues came, and how one kind of started to intermesh with the other inadvertently. And the idea of this kind of app is it's built on a no-code app builder, which means that it's really, you can do fast prototyping with it, right? So can build things and change things and adapt things very quickly. And so I think that's the real kind of advantage of doing this, is that a group can implement different types of ways of coordinating or communicating quickly and try things out. Something like what Will is building, right, is being built for the long term, right? So it's being built on blockchains, being actually like really custom developed. So I don't think that these are like kind of mutually exclusive. I think there's a way where you could play with this kind of like no code app builder, decide, okay, this really works, and then do more actual custom development. So yeah, so just wanting to say that. And I am, if the group wants to utilize something like this app, then for me it would be more about like catering it to what the group is trying to do, rather than saying, hey, this is like this thing I built, and now let's like go use it. So what's built is just kind of a one particular design that's still in process. So yeah, thank you for hearing all that.
Thanks, Rob. I'm I'm really responding to something that happened 2 weeks ago. And that thing that happened 2 weeks ago was I asked Will to make a presentation on my behalf to a group called The Wheel. And The Wheel represents 2,500 social enterprises, 285,000 employees, $34 billion in contribution to the Irish economy. So for me, it's a big deal to have our ideas placed in front of this not-for-profit that represents a lot of not-for-profits. And in one Wednesday afternoon, being in the demo, seeing that the demo didn't work, the Sarahfield.network, and I said, Jesus, well, we have a meeting tomorrow with the Wheel and we'll be able to show that. And he goes, well, I'd prefer you to take the code and do it yourself. And I went, holy shit. Because that's what I did 20 years ago. I raised $2 million. I made some technology. I got it up to 10 million euros worth of valuation. I fought with my CTO. He pulled the plug and I fell into a very deep depression, out of which I tried to take my own life twice. So here I am in front of exactly the same thing again. Build tech, get investors, da 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 da. So I had to be courageous and do what most of you are probably doing. I have to decide whether I'm going to do something or not. I put the call out. I need a CTO. And somebody showed up in Holland. Guy called Raider, Marshall. Now he's away at the moment, but he said, as long as we're spiritually aligned, so we've connected on Zoom. He's coming over here. I'm gonna go over there. And just like you're saying, Rob, or everybody is saying, things are only really gonna get real when I physically meet him and we decide to do something together. So that's what's happened. We are also close, as you've been hearing, to a grant application. So there could be a bank account with 160,000 euros in it with something to do. And so that's what I'm doing. And these Tuesday meetings here are places where I'm massively inspired by all the work that everybody here is doing. And maybe there's something that we're doing that we can offer into the comments. Maybe there's some work that you're doing that's been offered back into the comments. So that's kind of what's happening. When I met Grace, I just needed to check in with Grace. Just wanted to know where she was. And when I told her what we were doing, she said, that's great. I'd love to get involved. And I told her we were meeting on Tuesday, and here we are. So that's all that's happened as far as I can tell. We're here. There's no requirement for anybody to like being here. There's no requirement for anybody to be impressed. But what I did commit to doing is seeing if this dialogue is an artifact. That's what I'm really interested in now. Can this is why I'm recording it. We don't normally record it. Is this an artifact? Is the Zoom call an artifact? Is my annal going to be an artifact? Are the things that will take place as a result of this dialogue circle, will they be materialized? And if they're materialized, where do they show up on the world? In a profit loss account, or as I'm now calling them, an imbalance sheet, because of what Helen posted during the week. Helen blew my sockets during the week with Euler's equation, and I went off in a rabbit hole about we're all zero, we're not one at all. And it was just such a breath of fresh air, because I sit in circles where people saying we're all one, and Euler saying, no, we're all zero. I go, oh, that makes much more sense. And so if we can create a commitment pooling system that equals zero, now we have mathematical relevance. I think that's really interesting. So that's where I'm at. and Grace can come here if she likes, and she can stay away if she likes, and I do not give a flying fuck. I am all out of fucks to give.
I'm going to jump back in because I think, again, what this is bumping up against is the inherent tensions that will always be there, whether we name them or we don't name them. And this what easily becomes a dichotomy between what is real, what is practical, and what is worthwhile. And she's back. Okay. Welcome back. So Paul just spoke, and I'm just chiming in around what I think is still bumping up against a tension around what we discern as being real and material and not real or not having value. I think we come into this meeting, those of us that have been attending when we can and sporadically jumping in, not assuming not assuming that we're not doing things that are grounded and bringing to ground the work that we're doing in a bunch of ways. My experience is we come in recognizing there's a lot of stuff that we're involved in that's going on, and we see this as a place that nourishes both the various things that we're doing as well as the effort that Paul is speaking to. Another point of tension, I think, has to do with the balancing act around making things concrete and real through technology and funds. And we've all acknowledged, that's been one of the elephants in the room, is that there's a need for funds to flow to enable us to be and do the things that we're doing. We keep bumping into that, and we need enabling technology that enables us to be the best we can be and share and engage in multiple ways. It doesn't take the place of the things we do with family, with neighbors on the ground, which is much of what the bioregioning work is so important around living into this and being in very direct, tangible ways. So it doesn't take away from that. But those tensions, I think, continue to be there. I'm going to bring it back to some of what I've been exploring with Helen, for example, is that even recognizing how much of the work that's going on, where people feel engaged and we're doing stuff, still slides back into the recursive patterns, and we become blind yet again to new masters' houses and new ways of doing stuff that feels better, that feels like we're actually getting shit done, when in fact, if you look at what's going on broadly, we keep asking ourselves, are we still feeding a cycle where we feel better and it helps us feel more comfortable, but it's not actually addressing some of the inherent living, messy stuff. And so that's why I have valued that, and not to treat these as binary, separate, unconnected. They're all connected, and we carry all this stuff wherever we go, and we're free to choose where we want to be. And what you missed from the conversation, at least Grace, was the nobody's captive, and nobody, we make choices on, for these meetings at any given week, with whatever else we've got going on, whether this is a time that it feels like we want to be in this kind of dialogue with whoever chooses to be here now. So that's kind of a messy sense of what's rising up for me right now. Check.
Can I jump in here? Well, Donna, I think just reflecting on what you said, I think I haven't been to these meetings for a long time, Paul, as you know. I think I missed about a month or so, just ongoing things happening in my locality prevented me. But seeing there was something that attracted me to this one. I think interacting with the people, the new people, and the interactions that we collectively generated drew me to this meeting. One thing, just reflecting on what you said, Grace, I think one thing that I find the value of this group is that I live in Cape Town, South Africa, and I came here 16, 17 years ago from Canada. And I lived in Johannesburg for 7 years before moving to Cape Town. But I've been doing various projects, local projects here, to do with open source circular economy and empowering local communities, townships, and disenfranchised communities. And through my work and also through meeting other people who do similar work locally, we encounter this kind of same kinds of constraints of working in these environments. And some people have said they've seen this over decades where, the communities themselves are extremely undercapacitated, but also the people going into those communities are constrained and undercapacitated in many ways. So that's one of the things that drew me to working in the Commons and finding Michelle Bowen's work in cosmolocalism and so on, and really starting to tune into what he's trying to accomplish and the cosmo aspect, which we can represent as this through this meeting. We're all remote and we're meeting, sharing ideas. And then there's the local aspect, local production. So to me, I kind of see it from that framework that there's a lot of value that I take from meeting people like yourselves from other parts of the world, because I learn from each one of you. You give, there's so many diverse perspectives that I would not have been able to understand if I didn't meet each one of you. And so to me, that's kind of the magic of the Cosmo and the cosmolocalism, that you have this diverse resource of people from all around the world, and they're sharing their knowledge with you. And it enriches you so that you can then go into your own locality and do the work with greater efficacy, having been supported by all of you, and integrating all your ideas and synthesizing into what I have to offer on the ground. So, and then in turn, then I feed back, to the group as well. So to me, it's a kind of a give and take. The remote relationships by themselves are incomplete, as are the work I've found locally on the ground itself. I need support from others, diverse ideas and perspectives from outside the locality, and in order to do my work and in order to help achieve the maximum benefit that in the journeys that we can take together with the people locally. And so I guess that's just sharing my perspective on things that you've shared.
I guess there are a couple of threads I want to pick up on. The first one was what Rob was saying about there's a group that always seems to show up. And like, I'm going to say this in kind of a silly way. Like, there are people we like. There's people we want to work with because our styles match and we want to hang out with them. And that's how it works. Like, that's just, I don't know why that is. And putting different groups will feel more resonant with different people and whatever. But what Rob's pointing out, I think, is incredibly important. Like, they're the people who Rob has convened, and in my case, the people who I've convened, that are the people who want to work together on a particular project. And I think that's really important. And that blogging in these larger groups, which is for me not as satisfying. And it's much more important for me to be put in a random group of place because I have to get along with those people. They live in the same place like that. Whereas online, I feel like I can be, we're all more selective. And also my workplace, right? If I'm gonna actually launch a project, which we all are launching different projects, right? Like if I'm gonna actually launch a project, I'm gonna be picky about who comes into the project. And I'm gonna be, and the group who's actually doing the work is gonna be picky about who stays in the project if somebody isn't pulling their weight, et cetera, things like that. And so those are really different, like those are different things. Like we have our social circles and we have our work circles, and then sometimes we have these wider circles that are necessary for, like you were saying, Ben, about having people to bounce things off of that aren't in your regular circle. And I think everybody has different levels of need for those different combinations of who do I need locally, who do I need in my work environment, who do I need in my social environment, and those are just personal personal balances that we all have to figure out what's right for us. So that's with that. And that, and I really resonate with Rob said. It's like there's certain people in your life and in your work life and in your personal life that just always come back because there's something resonant about the style that you want to work with. The second thing I wanted to resonate with is the code and the actual app that Rob has built. Like, and what Paul was saying about having an app that isn't built, like having people who aren't reliable to actually build something that works. And I think it's really important. Like it's really important that Rob has built something that works and that we could actually trial. Now, I personally am a little bit less interested in the needs and offers and the mutual credit and all those things. I'm going to stop so I can get a visual as well. But I'm not interested in that particular software. But I totally admire anybody who's built something that works. So I just want to be really clear about that. Like the fact that there's something that works that Paul's able to offer to an actual potential funder or potential client or potential community, I think that's profound. And I would concur with Paul in his experiences with grassroots economics. I don't think that what Rob said about this being built for the long term is accurate. This is a group that's been around for 20 years. And if they can't put code together, like, I'm sorry. Like I've worked with them in the past. They seem to change their code and they seem to change their blockchain every single year. And I don't consider them a trustworthy organization. And I consider Rob to be trustworthy because he's built something that works. And, and he's persistent. And does it matter that it's built with no code software? It doesn't matter to me. Working code is working code, man. And I think that's really where I am. I'm like, okay, what can we build together and what can we do together? Because I think that for me, I don't know if I like somebody until we've had a crisis and I see how they handled it. I don't know if I can work with somebody until we've had a misunderstanding and gotten through it. And if we've never had any misunderstanding between us, I actually don't know if we can work together. And that only happens in the physical world. Like, yes, it can happen in the emotional space and whatever, but there are people in my family who I've never had to actually physically do anything with, who I can get along just fine because I never have to physically do anything with. But if I have to actually physically make a deadline and run your code on, in a presentation or show up for a presentation where you told me you were going to submit your slides and you don't show up on time or you do show, like, that's when I know that's what's interesting to me today. And I think that like dialoguing it's all good and fine. And a lot of these ideas around the commons, like I think and Jamie Wheel was talking about this, or Jordan Hall was like, yeah, all this common stuff and we're going to do things together and we agree on our values, it's all good until somebody sleeps with your wife. Right? It's like you have to see the actual behavior on the ground and you have to go through those crises together. Like if there's a flood or if there's somebody cheats on you or the money disappears from the pot or all that stuff. And without that, at this moment in my life, without that real backing, it's just not like it's not real. And that's why I'm really excited about what Rob's doing. Like I said, I'm not a mutual credit dude. I think it's silly, but I'm super excited that Rob's built something that works, that we can trial. Like that is super exciting to me. So yeah, that's what I have to say about those threads.
I ran a circle once in South Africa with 40 men. And I was the facilitator that day because I wasn't a dialogue group. And the practice was to check in, get everybody comfortable, and then everybody had 2 5x3 cards and a marker. And after everybody got comfortable, each man had to write what his earnings was on one of the cards. Okay, you have to write what you earn in a year, and then you turn the card around. And then you look at this circle, 40 men, all looking at the revenue for the year. And then you deal with the ripples from that. Oh, I was expecting you to be earning more. I didn't know you earned so much. And that takes 2 hours, yeah. And then the second card is your debt. How much debt have you got? And people wrote their debts and they put it out into the circle. And again, it takes an hour to handle that stuff. And it seemed to me at the time, it was the most tense place for me at the time. Partly because I wasn't earning very much and I had to write 0 on a card. But then there was guys who were earning a lot who had $10 million in debt, and I thought, oh, Jesus, I'm not that bad. So for me, there's something about what we're about to do, which is like reflecting that card for the intangible nature of what all of us appear to be doing in the world. And the word compensation came up in the Telegram group, and I had a charge on that. Oh, we've never used the word compensation. And so that's why I'm delighted that it's here. So there's something about what we're all doing, as far as I can tell, where we're trying to name the shadows around the tangible and the shadows around the intangible. And maybe there's some technology that we can use for ourselves or not. Yeah, that's all I have for now.
I think, Paul, what you said there, moving from the intangibles to the tangibles is it has synergies to what Grace is saying, and also with what Michael's been working on, with the me to we to all, because it's like to accomplish what Rob has done, for instance. Let's just take Rob's project as an example. I'm sorry to pick on you, Rob, but he's accomplished something that's he's delivered something on time and that's reliable, and that works to within the parameters that he's designed. And like you said, Grace, whether it's code or no code, it makes no difference. It's the end result that's important. I mean, if AI can then make the same, one could exploit AI to do the same thing, then it's the end result. However, I think it's not easy to convert that intangible to the tangible. It's like the conversations I've had with Michael, like how do we form cohesive groups of we's that actually can accomplish something impactful in the world? And I think that's a big part of your question, Michael. How do we work together how do we find the people? How do we find those people to form those groups with greater efficacy? And like, Jury, his project with the Indie Web, he's been working on it for 4 decades, trying to find it but it's a huge, he's taking a huge undertaking. But and I think all of us, all of us have projects, and we are looking for those people to form those teams and to fill in the gaps, how to accomplish and reach that end goal. So I think converting the intangible to the tangible, having the vision, the imagination, and then how do we get there? How do we make it tangible? How do we realize it and manifest it in the world? So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
I just want to say, yeah, maybe before Grace jumps off, or I just want to say thank you. Yeah, Grace and Gian, am I saying your name? correctly?
Gian, with a hard
Oh,
G.
Gian.
Yeah.
Hard G, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
ambiguous.
just gotcha. Well, all right, Gian, not ambiguous any longer. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I mean, I know we've all put in thousands of hours, and yeah, it's lovely to hear kind words. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate that, and also, yeah, it's exciting. I mean, this is what I love to do is to take things and build them and bring them in and explore and experiment and yeah, make shifts and transformations as groups and collectives.
I just want to say thank you, and I'm feeling compelled to offer. I'm putting a link in the chat just to a podcast I heard this morning, and it's related to a new book called Assembling Tomorrow, A Guide to Designing a Thriving Future. And there are things in it. I only listened to the interview, but it really was exceptional. And it's to I think the professors at Stanford, Young, and what they were saying was reminding me, Gian, of your progress traps that you speak of a lot. So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts coming up, but they're really my own opinions of for today. It's nice to see every single person here, though. So thank you.
And I would check out with synchronicity, the synchronicity of us being here together in this moment. And Grace, for example, put in a podcast of a guy who is a hurling professional in Ireland, Diarmuid Lynn, and didn't know the name, but when I went and checked him out, I'm Facebook friends with him, and we've already had a conversation about doing something together. So that's the kind of thing that's happening. Something turns up in a Telegram group, it's on a Facebook, sorry, it's on a podcast. I go to the podcast, I realize, oh, I know you. And as it happens, we lost our Brehon today because he's taken a job and a role. And I think to myself, that guy in the podcast would make a great Brehon. And so I send him a Facebook message because he's already my Facebook friend. And for me, that's the kind of magic that's happening. I don't know how I met Rob Hurwitz. I've no idea. And I can't remember where I met any of you really. And it doesn't really matter. I'm just glad to be here today, and I'll be here next Tuesday, whether there's nobody or everybody. So blessings and Coromila Mahagafikalir. Thank you so much, all.
I'll check out sharing two anecdotes that for me represent one of the tensions that I had hoped we would explore differently today. The first is a project that I've been invited to get involved in. Indigenous nations here on Turtle Island get a lot of funding for education projects, certain things that, if you will, funders support. Something that gets no funding, that is in fact hugely important in that wisdom tradition, is ceremony, where there is a preparing of the space in order to do whatever needs to be done. But that's not seen as having an ROI, and so there's no money for it. And there's been a whole thing. And if anyone's interested in being an ally, we can talk about that later. But there's this whole like how to be and participate in this when the financial flows don't seem to flow that way. And this speaks to the discovery process in a different hat is in academia. You know, discovering what we don't know, putting language and then translating. And this is one of the things I aspire to do is translational research of taking ideas that have been uncovered and prototyping them into realities. And there's a kind of work that also is not often in technical circles called requirements gathering, so that somebody like Rob can in fact, you know, build, you know, it's like, and this is one of the things that this group I'm hoping is kind of, can be a kind of a research of what are the questions that matter and what are the activities that need to be done around those questions, so that we can be taking, you know, building our own little prototypes, implementing them in our own ways, but we are honing on the cross-cutting questions that that matter to most of us, so that we can be in action on something that spills over in more places. And that work is also work that, you know, I find has been stolen many times, you know, because it's work to put all the time. And so it's like, I want to be able to set up an agreement where we can say, hey, can we rely that we will do this unfunded stuff, but we'll watch out for each other. And I know that's not what everybody else came for. That's not, but that's why the relational space that Grace you've been pointing to me is like it's the space that then allows for the other to unfold beautifully. And I offer myself, continue to. Sana, you have offered yourself, and there's more to be said there. And to continue to inquire together. And I'll just stop there. As usual, I know how to kill a conversation.
I can jump in by saying I think there is always a zooming in, zooming out that goes on. To understand. I think we're at a time, at a juncture where things are very unstable. And that instability naturally draws us to find ways of gaining stability. And that's understandable, the need for stability. But sometimes that stability is still illusion. And so it's also okay for us to talk about that in the places that we choose to do that. And the kind of dialogue here, for me, it's a zooming in and zooming out. This conversation continues in other places. We have the conversation here. We pick up these threads. They help us think through, and I think you're trying to raise that with Kim. We draw from it, and then we continue to work with it, and the conversations kind of become blurred, and life is just more blurry, and it just is more messy. And we've come through, all of us to varying degrees, have come through an age where we've been so used to being boxed in and boxing in and defining and confining, and getting things to concrete, that it is very easy to fall back into the same patterns of ways of framing, of leading, of making stuff happen. But if we look at all the stuff that's been happening over the last 50 years and beyond, much of that has been adding to the degeneration of people and planet. And so it's holding all of that without foreclosing, without saying this, not that, this, not that, this, not that. And it's also natural. We have these natural filtering systems that cause us to foreclose and get very binary about stuff. No, this, not that. And we'll still do some of that, and we need some of it because it's easy to get overwhelmed. We can't do everything. It's not about doing everything. And there is a need to ground this. There is a need to ground. So when I'm saying all of this, it's not this, not that. It's saying yes, and we bring gifts differing. There's some different things that we're each more inclined at this juncture in time, better at doing. But when we can be more fully who we are, showing up being who we are, getting out of this performative, measured way of doing stuff, there's greater potential for us to blossom and grow and interbecome. And there comes the we. Therein comes the we. Otherwise, we keep foreclosing on the me and the I. What's in this for me? What can I do with this? What can I take away from this now and run with? That's extractive, folks. And we've all grown up in an extractive system. And we keep on doing it. And that's not even it's not a criticism. It's just this becomes a place where we can name that. That's all. And then become, increasingly, I think, more cognizant in all of the places that we choose to show up. That's kind of where I've arrived to at this juncture, and it's unfinished, messy, unfinished, hard to articulate, not polished. And at some level, it's saying that's okay. We got enough polished people in the world that can speak and box things in and make it all sound wonderful. But look around, the joy will come in us being able to be more real with each other, and then doing the best we can with what we've got and what we can go forward with. End of. It's never ending. I'm hearing noises I have to attend to.
Could be your puppy up to some mischievous deed.
No, it's folks working that have arrived that were supposed to work on the property, and they're actually gotten underway.
Okay. I'm just reflecting on what you said, Don. I think the value of space like this is that I think a lot of us have been involved in projects where things didn't go the way we thought they would, and I think a lot of that is because we haven't. I think to me, this space it's kind of a non-linear space to explore people, to build social capital and trust, and before going in and doing something with the other, getting to know people much more deeply. I think in a lot of spaces where it's like techno-oriented, here's the target. We're going to achieve this, whether it's software or hardware or mechanical or whatever, and people amass a team, and then they start working, and then people don't really know each other, you know. The warm data has not surfaced, you know, hasn't had the opportunity to surface. And then all of a sudden, there's a crisis, right? Or Grace talks about crisis. How do you, we want to know about how, we don't know people until we know how they behave under pressure. But at the same time, we can, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not prevent, but there's a word, not preclude. Can't remember the word for now, but we can kind of help mitigate those kind of situations from emerging in the first place if we just spend more time, go slow to go fast, develop the relational grounding, the fabric with the people that before you make a serious commitment to explore with, you know, further with them, get to know them. You know, pretty simple. Our mother and father probably told us that advice, you know, gave us that advice a long time ago. So you really get to know people, and how do you get to know people? You know, having conversations, sharing ideas, and getting their feedback, and those the greater the diversity of those ideas one shares, the more rounded an understanding you have of the other. Check.
I would say, and, you know, in these gatherings, until you're doing it, you don't even realize the assumptions that you have, even if you think you don't have them. While I mean, and when we are going from a circle that is just gathering and seeing what comes from to a circle that's gathering to do something together, it changes. And when we go from a circle that then goes to be measured and looked at and see if it can be used for something, it changes. But this is an experiment. It's an exploration, right? It's all kinds of things. But I like what you say about the diversity of thought, Ken. Because I know I thought something was gonna be the very best thing ever, gathering people, like really, I would say intuitive people. Can we like be and produce something? I thought, oh, it'd be so easy. Absolutely didn't happen. But what happened was so many insights that came from just gathering and the zooming in and zooming out. And they were lessons from the field. They weren't what we were doing. It wasn't, none of it was by design, but we were gathering. And then we keep gathering. And like Donna says, and going from one place to another, you know, but no one should be like, we shouldn't think that everyone would like, you know, some people really prefer structure, and that's fine, right? That's fine. So anyway, thank you. I need to jump off back to work. It's interesting. Thanking you as always. Bye-bye.
I'll just jump in briefly. I am no longer comfortable in spaces that have a predetermined agenda, that have a defined outcome, that know all the answers, and that think that simply moving forward with great haste because we don't have any time is exactly why, despite having in the 70s begun to really identify these problems, our solutions don't work, and in fact make it worse. So thinking that we can just, if we just do what we've been doing better, is going to achieve something new, I think has been demonstrated to be false. But yet when I show up in places and I talk about not having an agenda, letting things emerge, that the very concept of having a goal has quashed the essence of life. Nobody wants to hear that. And all everybody wants to know is what box I'm in and how I'm going to monetize what I'm doing. And if I can't say how what I'm doing can be monetized, it in fact has no value. And that very idea and that insistence on legibility, on outcome, is the problem. Like, that is the nature of our problem. And so one of the things I do enjoy about this space, and I have not been in some time, is that it does not have structure, that it is not looking for a predetermined outcome, and it is not trying to smash me or anything else into a known single desired outcome with steps to get there. So for all of the indeterminacy, the messiness, the lack of clarity, I fucking love it. So thank you. That's all I've got.
I meant to say right at the beginning, Helen, that I love the fact that you talked about not monetizing whatever you do, because I've never done it. The whole of my life, I've never charged for anything I've ever done. And I just, see what happens and go out and enjoy it and build a project and find the people who are actually prepared to dive in and do something with you and see where it goes. That's sort of
money actually shows up. Like, while skating on the edge, like, things, when I don't have an outcome, like, is actually when like, rather than somebody owning me or my time or the demanded outcome, by not imposing any of that, I actually allow things to emerge. So I very much appreciate that.
No, very much on that wavelength. Love it. I also love the fact you've got exactly the same shelving system as I've got the other end of the room here. That's have had for years, but probably got the same books on them. But yeah, it's good. I'm intrigued by several of the last conversations were about the mess, the contradictions, the almost the competitions, and these are, for me, elements of the old world. And while Donna was speaking, I suddenly saw a box with balls in it crashing across. So you're always going in the opposite direction of some other conversation piece and so forth. And my understanding of the current moment is that the box is just about to be taken away. I've never seen myself in a box. I have no intention of being in a box. And it's sort of, there's a freedom that's about to come to us all. And it's there behind the conversations that we have in these meetings. We're accelerating into some enormous space. And then I can see the we working as groups of people say, now we're going this way. We're not just being thrown off the wall because of a society that's controlled us. We're actually choosing our direction and moving together. And I just had that sudden visualization of the old world being in a box and our world being free. And I just, love it. And it's, again, that sitting and contemplating that we do on these Tuesdays. It's just gorgeous. You never know where it's going to go. I love it. Thank you all.
Everybody out, Kian? Yeah.
I'll just close with just respond to what Michael and Helen said, just in closing. Helen, we don't know each other, of course. First time we've met, but I've been working on an idea for a long time called progress traps, and it's not a term that I coined, but some other people have. But I feel it's a very important field of human knowledge that is especially salient at this time. And it's all about complexity and how human beings have intention, and through simplified models of trying to reach those intentions, we create unintended consequences, especially of technology and of progress. So it's very aligned to, all the things that you've been talking about, and also Michael. And I think what the rebalance that's required is to try to balance, to recognize our complexity as living systems, and to work with that. And not be afraid of the messiness. Know that intention does emerge within us. Otherwise, we couldn't reach for a cup of tea when we're thirsty. But we're yeah, we're always in this dance of complexity of the unknowns and the knowns, you know, together. And I think there was, yeah, I wrote an article about the word progress, and I can share it with everyone in the Telegram group, but trying to coin a new word that actually means, you know, we're stepping forward as we step backwards, reflecting the complexity. So that's my check out.
Thank you, Gian. Donna, have you checked out?
I think I kind of did. I just caught the tail end of again what you just shared, and I think this is about holding paradox. And in the holding of paradox, we become better equipped to hold complexity. And whether or not we accept the complexity, it's there anyway. And it's always beyond our ability to hold it all, which is at some level, it's coming to accept that. And that's the power of the we, in that there's more than us, and we don't need to think we know so much if we can find ways to work together in all kinds of different combinations to build that co-intelligence of, you know, as humans, as more than humans, and as sentient beings in a much larger, you know, universe, planet, and cosmos. And that's, you know, this ends up being a kind of and that's why I have been I value all of the conversations we've been having, and I value the stuff that we've been excavating, Helen, because that's helped give me some new handles for, you know, and not that I'm grasping all of it, but to understand what I've intuitively arrived at in the way that I happen to arrive there. And we arrive in these places, you know, through different pathways, and that's okay too. I'll never fully understand, and I've said this a number of times, some of the geometry and the physics or the ancient wisdom that you bring, for example, I'll never fully, that's not what I bring, and that's going to be okay, because you bring that, and Helen brings that, and we can come to, you know, gradually come to appreciate and understand some of that if it gives us ways, dialogue, handles for working in ways that are more congruent, aligned with all the stuff we keep saying we believe and that we hold in our hearts. But I know we're all seeing examples, the disconnects between what people, the words and the music. You know, the words are there, the sophistication. In fact, you asked if I checked out. I said I had, and look at me, here I go.
There you go.
But it's just, people are getting more sophisticated at talking the talk. And as that goes on, without actually walking the walk and living it in the embodied ways of being it. And that is part of the difficulty we're all experiencing, I think, to some degree. And then it becomes hard, you know, the deep relationships, the loving, caring, the place that's not coming from fear. It becomes harder for people to do that because they keep measuring them. We keep, you know, measuring themselves up against people that seem to know all this shit, but they know it in their heads and they're not living it in all those layers. Check. I'm complete for now.
You know where I saw people measuring themselves yesterday? There are people in Tibet who go on a pilgrimage and they lie down on the ground and they push themselves out full like that, and then they get up and they walk 4 steps and then they do it again, and they do that for 5,000 kilometers. Now that's somebody measuring themselves because they're headed to a sacred place, one body length at a time. So I'm so grateful to have seen that documentary on Tibet. And I just want to wrap up with this, where the words and music have to come together. I was very excited about Will's technology, and he said, "Oh, you can have it free. Oh, it's fantastic, great. I want to present it to the client. Here's the specification." Yeah. He said, "Oh, okay. I better send you a document." I said, "Okay." He sends me a document for $200,000 worth of development. I go, "What? I'm getting some mixed messages here, buddy." So, on the one hand, one week it's free, the next week it's going to cost $200,000 that I have to raise and put it into his technology. I don't think so. This is why I'm here, because I'm lying out prostrate, and I'm getting up and taking 4 steps, and I'm lying out prostrate. So these dialogues every Tuesdays where I lie out prostrate, and thank you everybody for the continuing journey. Blessings to us all. See you soon.